Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, welcome sis. Today I have a highly requested dark skin client tutorial, or how I slay my dark skin clients. So make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, all that good stuff. So yeah, we're gonna get started. So right now I'm just priming her eyelids. Her brows I did off camera. I have a very detailed eyebrow tutorial on my channel, so you could go check it out. But I'm just using this white primer from Plouise, and I use a white primer when I'm doing colored looks because that is what really makes the colors pop. And I'm just blending that out with a Morphe brush, just tapping it into place, making sure the product is spread nice and evenly. So I'm going for a sunset eye look. So I'm taking this nice deep dark red from the Morphe palette, and I'm just patting that into place with the Morphe M506 brush. You already know all the products will be listed on the screen as I mentioned them. So I'm just patting the color into place first, really getting that beige shade on. And a lot of people always ask me how I get my eyeshadows really pigmented. The key is to pack the color on first and then blend it out. Don't like go in blending. Pack it on first, especially when you're working on darker skin tones, because you really need the colors to be pigmented. So pack it on and then blend it out. But because we're doing a sunset eye, we're not going to really worry about blending the first shade out yet, because that's the beige shade. So now I'm going in with this nice vibrant red color with the same M506 brush from Morphe, and I'm just applying that to the outer edge part of the first beige shade so that the colors blend in seamlessly and they ombre like a sunset. And then I'm going to blend out the brighter red. Now the key to blending is trying to get rid of any harsh lines. You don't want any harsh lines because you don't want to be able to tell where one color starts and where another color stops. So I'm not really trying to blend out the eyeshadow like fully. I'm trying to smudge it so that I get rid of the harsh line, because I'm going to add another eyeshadow, which is this nice orange from this palette from Play It in Makeup by YOLONDO. Using a small detailed pencil brush to diffuse the orange into the red, just to get that perfect sunset look. I don't remember where I got the brush from, but the type of brush is very common, so you could find it anywhere. It's a small detailed pencil brush. And then I'm taking a different brush. This is like a firm but fluffy eyeshadow brush. It's called a bullet brush, and it really diffuses and blends out the eyeshadow without moving it around too much. So my goal is to blend it in place because I don't want the orange to spread. So this is a very good brush. I highly recommend it. It's from Sephora. And then I'm taking some yellow eyeshadow from the Juvia's ZULU palette, and I'm going in with it on this Morphe M507 brush, which is just a small fluffy eyeshadow brush, and I'm using that to add, you know, more of a sunset vibe. And then I'm taking a little bit of black eyeshadow on that bullet brush from Sephora, just a little bit, because I wanted to add some depth, but I didn't want it to be too deep, you know what I'm saying? And then I'm cleaning up the eyeshadow. Now remember guys, makeup is a process. It takes time to really come together, so it looks a little, I'm not gonna lie, it looks a little funny, but we gonna fix it or whatever, you know what I'm saying? We gotta cut the crease, so all of that is really not really gonna show. It's kind of just like the background color. But after I clean it up and blend it out, then I'm gonna apply this primer to cut the crease with. This is actually a paint, but I use it as a primer. It's from the Plouise and MMMITCHEL collection. And what I do is I put primer on my client's lid, and then I tell them to look up, and then that is where I cut the crease at. So if you need to cut your client's crease and you don't really know where to cut, just do that. Put it on their lid, tell them to look up, and then the line of demarcation that it creates is where you cut your crease at. So now I'm taking the Crown C467 brush per usual. I've been using this a lot. This is a very multi-used brush. And then I'm using that to carve out the crease. Now, to be honest, carving creases takes some practice. It's not one of those things that you kind of like get on the first try. I mean, if you got it like that, if you're that talented, you can or whatever. But it takes practice to really get a bomb cut crease. I don't really have a specific technique. I just do the look up thing, and then I carve out where, you know, I want to cut the crease. I kind of eyeball it. But I will say that when cutting the creases, my goal is to always make the eyes look larger than they really are. Especially when you're doing a client with hooded eyes, you want to make it appear as if their eyes are bigger, and you want to give the lid more space by making the cut crease kind of big. And then you do that by basically extending the shape of the eye. So like where the inner eye corner part is, you kind of extend that. You guys can see I kind of like put the cut crease a little further than from where I originally cut it, because once again, I'm trying to create as much lid space as I can to make the eyes look bigger so you can really see the whole cut crease. So yeah, that's a little trick or whatever. And then I'm just gonna blend out the paint, primer, you know, whatever it is. It's really a paint, but you could use it as a primer, and to cut the crease is very multi-used or multi-purposed. So then I'm gonna add some white eyeshadow, and this is the eyeshadow from the Warrior palette from Juvia's place, I believe. I put it on the screen though. And the brush, y'all, I don't remember where I got this brush from. I'll be having brushes for years, so I honestly can't tell you where I got this from, but it's just a regular flat eyeshadow brush. Very common type of brush. You can get one of these like anywhere, to be honest. And then I'm applying a yellow from the Juvia's place Zulu palette with the same brush, and then I'm gonna blend those two together to create like a nice ombre type of effect. And then after that, I'm gonna put a pigment on top of the white just because I am very extra, but y'all gonna see that in a second. I'm gonna blend out the edges of the yellow eyeshadow with the same red color that we used as the base on the Morphe M506 brush, just to make sure that everything blends out nicely together. And then I'm gonna line her lid with some black liquid eyeliner. And this is just because I felt like the look needed a nice liner without adding a wing. So I'm just going to add that, and then I'm going to take my finger and smudge out the outer part of the liner just so that everything blends out nicely and it's not just like a thick block of liner. And I'm also going to use the liner to coat her real lashes just to blend it in better with the falsies, because mascara doesn't always get in there like I need it to. And then I put her lashes on off camera, and now it's time to get into the face. I'm using a Wet n Wild stippling brush to apply the Pond's Nourishing Cream for dry to very dry skin, and then I'm going to apply the Milk Hydro Grip Primer. Now, even though my client has oily skin, I'm using a moisturizer to moisturize her skin because it felt dry and rough. And if the client's skin feels dry or rough, no matter what type of skin type they have, you should always moisturize, because when you apply primer and foundation and all that makeup on top of it, it'll come out like patchy and it'll start to crack, and it's not cute. So always moisturize no matter what type of skin your client has. And then I'm going to put the Milk Hydro Grip Primer because that primer makes everything last longer and it really grips the makeup and makes everything smooth. So now I'm moving on to foundation. Now I'm going to take the CoverGirl True Blend foundation and I'm going to apply it with my finger. I usually apply it with like a lipstick applicator or a brush, but I found that sometimes I may pick up too much foundation and then I have to like use a napkin to like wipe off my brush in between blends. So I use my finger because it allows me to apply less product but still give her a full coverage application. As you can see, I'm just rubbing it under her eye and just applying it in dots all over her face. I'm also putting some on her neck because you want everything to blend in together and match. Always blend in the foundation down her neck or whoever's neck you're doing, because you want everything to look like one. And I also match the foundation to her body and her neck. It depends. If I always ask my client like what they're wearing and stuff like that, but usually their body, like their arms and legs, is out, so I always match the foundation to their body. And then I'm just blending it out with this beautiful brush that I bought from Morphe. This is the Y8 brush and it works so well. It's dense, but it's fluffy, and those are the best type of brushes to use when you are blending out foundation. So I'm just buffing that into her skin, making sure everything is nice and blended. And the CoverGirl True Blend line has a good shade range when it comes to dark skin clients, and they don't have gray undertones. When you're working with dark skins, avoid anything with gray undertones because that's how you get the ashy look. You want to go for red or neutral, but never gray. Gray is not the vibes, okay? Now we're moving on to highlighting. I'm taking the CoverGirl True Blend Concealer, and this is in the shade D90 or D900. I put it on the screen per usual, and I'm just applying that with a Crown C467 brush. Now, when you're doing highlighting on dark skin clients, be careful not to go too light. You always want to go a shade like 2 to 3 shades light the most. That's really with anyone, but you really have to be careful on dark skin clients, because if you put a light color against dark skin, it will pop even more. So you have to be careful. And then I'm mixing it in with the KEVYN AUCOIN concealer. Now this one is light, but I mixed it in with a darker one, so when I blend it out, it won't look that light as it looks right now. And I recommend the KEVYN AUCOIN skin enhancer so much. No matter what skin type the person has, this thing is just beautiful. Best full coverage concealer out there, period. But it is a little pricey, but I feel like it's worth it because it lasts so long. So you'll spend $50 now and you won't have to spend another $50 for months or even a year. I had mine for months now. So, you know, I'm just mixing in both of the products on my hand. I use my hand a lot. Some people use like the makeup plate, but that gets annoying to me. As long as your hands are clean, it really does not matter. So I'm just applying that in all the highlighted areas. And if you need a detailed highlighting and contouring tutorial, I have one on my channel. So I'm just putting that in all the places that the light hits her face, which is under her eyes, her nose, you know, etc. And then I'm also putting a little concealer underneath her cheekbone because it's a little reverse contouring and it's really going to snatch her face after we contour her face. So yeah, and it looks like I put on a lot of concealer on her face. I actually didn't. I put a very thin layer, but I just spread it out. So it looks like a lot, but it's not. And then as you guys could see, I put some concealer on my hand, and then I tapped my brush into my hand and I'm using that to apply the contour. I'm trying this new trick because sometimes when you draw the lines on the client's face with the product and then blend it out, it may be harsh or a little harder to blend out. So I started doing this and I absolutely love it. And when you're contouring dark skin clients, don't be afraid to go dark, okay? Because they're already dark. So you have to go really dark in order for the contour to show. And I use the Juvia's Place concealer in the shade 1. They have a very good shade range when it comes to contouring, so that's why I use that color. Another contour thing that I recommend, well, something I use to contour, is the e.l.f. CAMO concealers because they have a nice shade range when it comes to darker complexions as well. I use the hydrating camo one though. Now I'm just blending out the concealer and I'm using the original beauty blender to do so. I haven't found like really good dupes. I really like the original. It works really well. And I'm just going over the blended areas with the foundation brush to make sure that the highlighted part and the contour part blend in seamlessly. And as you can see, I have a napkin in my hand because sometimes when I'm blending out the concealer, the sponge soaks up a little too much, and then some concealer that I wanted in one place will travel and go to another place, and it'll just be too much concealer in places that I didn't want it to be. So I kind of wipe it off on the napkin in between blends, if that makes sense. But you know, that's kind of unnecessary, to be honest. But I don't know, I'm extra. I just do what feels good to me, to be honest, and I just felt like it was necessary. So you know, when you're doing eyeshadow and you're going in from one color to another using the same brush, so sometimes you wipe off the brush in between colors so it's a clean application of the next color. That's kind of what I did with the beauty blender. But anyways, I'm just going over the highlighted parts with the foundation brush once again because I used it to contour and for foundation. And I'm just making sure that some of the color from the foundation and contour go over the highlighted part so that you can't really tell where the highlight starts and where the contour stops. So yeah, I'm just doing that. And then I'm blending in the reverse contoured part that I put like under her cheekbone. I just blended that in with the foundation brush as well. And I also blend out the highlighted areas in a certain order. I blend out the outer part of the highlighted part under the eyes first, and then I go on the forehead, and then I do underneath the cheekbone, and then I go under the eye, and then I do the nose, or I do the nose and then under the eye. It kind of depends on how I'm feeling, but I just do that because I want certain parts to dry down more than others because I want it to be more full coverage. That's also why I don't blend out the highlight immediately. I let it sit first and then I blend it out. As you guys saw when I applied the concealer to highlight, I didn't blend it in immediately. When you let the concealer sit, it gives a more full coverage look. So I apply the concealer and then I apply the contour, then I blend out the contour, and then I blend out the concealer. But like I said, if you need a really detailed highlight and contouring tutorial, that is on my channel. So after I blend out all that good stuff, I will set the eyes. So I set the eyes with the SACHA Buttercup, and I use a very small eyeshadow brush to set under the eyes first because that's the part that creases the most. So I set that first with a small brush, and I also set other places in the face that crease a lot, which is really under the eyes and around the nose part. And I set that with the SACHA Buttercup first. It may look a little light, but this is the best powder ever. It works so good on any type of skin because it doesn't leave any flashback, and I love it so much. But then I'm going to set the rest of the face, and I mix the Ben Nye Chestnut powder, and then I apply that to the face. I mix the Ben Nye Chestnut with the SACHA Buttercup, and I use a beauty blender to apply it to all the highlighted areas. I mix it because I like the color that it gives on dark skins when you mix it. I only put the SACHA Buttercup underneath first because I kind of want that part to be a little brighter than the rest of the face. I don't know, I like a bright under eye. But then I mixed another powder that's a little darker just so that it doesn't give off too light of a look. It doesn't give flashback, but it could also, you don't want it to be too light. So just to be safe, I did that. But honestly, if you use it by itself, it won't give you no problems. I just, I be cautious because you don't want the dark skin models to be going out looking crazy, you feel me? So just for extra security or whatever. Now I'm taking a powder brush. This is a random powder brush, I have to be honest, and I'm setting the contoured parts with the Black Radiance contour palette, but this is in dark to deep, and I use the contour shade to set the contour. There's a sculpt shade and a contour shade, and I use the darker one to contour her face or to set the contoured parts. And now I'm using my foundation brush to wipe away some of that powder. The video is sped up and cut, but I didn't let the powder sit for too long. She has oily skin, so baking wouldn't be much of an issue, but I also don't want it to sit for too long because sometimes if you let the powder sit too long, that's also what could give your client an ashy look, and you can't have the dark skins looking ashy. That's a no-no. They'll come out looking like Casper the Friendly Ghost, and we don't need those problems. So don't let the powder sit for too long. And now I'm just wiping away the powder under her eye with a smaller setting brush. This is the Real Techniques one, and I'm just fluffing that away. After you dust off the powder, your client's face may look a little dry, but don't worry about that. It should look dry after you set it. That's the purpose of setting it, to make sure that everything is nice and dry and it's not wet so it won't move. But once you put some setting spray on that, it'll go right away. So don't be scared if your client's face looks a little dry. And then I'm going to bronze up the face a little bit. I'm taking the shade Abby in the Juvia's Place blush palette, and it's a very deep brownish reddish burgundy shade, and this is also the key to making sure that your dark skins look nice and their melanin really pops. You have to get a nice bronzer, and I recommend the bronzers in the Morphe Glamour Bronze collection and this nice little bronzer shade from the Juvia's Place blush palette, and I'm just putting that in the places I contoured. And that's another key, like I said, to making sure your dark skins don't come out ashy or they look dead. You have to add color to their face, and you do that with bronzer and blush. Definitely always apply blush, and I always recommend an orange blush because I feel like orange makes the melanin pop. Orange and brown just look mad nice together, and it really just enhances the melanin. And then I'm contouring her nose a little bit with the same Black Radiance palette that I use, but I'm using the middle color now. Like I said like 2 times already, you could go check out my highlight and contour tutorial on my channel for a very in-depth tutorial. But now I'm adding a little bit of blush, and I'm using the same Juvia's Place palette, and I add a little bit to her nose and on her cheeks and the temples because I feel like those spots on the face is what really brings in the color, and the color just looks bomb in those areas. So then I'm going over it with the foundation brush because I realized I put a little bit too much. And now I'm gonna add a little bit of highlight. This is my favorite highlight. It's called Conceited, and it's from Artist Couture, and it's just a very bomb highlight, and it just makes the melanin pop. As stated previously, I am very extra, so I'm taking this Diamond Bomb from Fenty Beauty and just putting a little bit, because a little bit goes a long way, over the highlighted areas once again, because when you take a nice low light video or the light hits, your client's face will be sparkling to the gods. And then I'm just lining her waterline with some black gel liner. It's really a color tattoo like eyeshadow from Maybelline, but it works good as a gel liner. And then I'm adding a little bit of red to her bottom line. I'm adding a little bit of glitter because, you know, extra. And then I'm just going to add some mascara to her lower lashes, and then we're going to move on to the lip. Now I'm just going to do the lips. So I'm taking a dark brown lip liner and just lining her lips. I always use a dark brown lip liner when I'm working on darker clients. I always do nude lips. I never really do color unless my client asks for it. So when you're doing nude on anyone dark skin, or if you're dark skin yourself, always use a dark brown lip liner to line your lips first, because sometimes nude just looks crazy if you just put it on your skin without no lip liner. And then I'm going to put on some nude lip gloss, and this is my favorite lip gloss. It's from Peaches and Cream Cosmetics, and it's in Back Chat. And then I'm going to put a little bit of the blank canvas paint on her lip because I just like the nude combo that it made. And then I'm just going to take some clear gloss and go over her lips with that and make her rub it in and blot it in and all that good stuff. Now, one of the most important steps in this whole thing is setting the face, but it's a certain way to set the face. So what I do is I spray my setting spray onto the beauty blender, and then I pounce the beauty blender on my client's skin because we just put on mad layers of makeup. So I want to set all those layers. So I put it on the beauty blender, and then I really pounce it into the skin. And then after I do that, I set the face with the Anastasia's Dewy setting spray so that the skin looks more like skin and it doesn't look like powdery and cakey and stuff like that. And doing this will make sure that it doesn't look powdery and cakey, and it just makes the skin look very rejuvenated and pretty. And this is the final result. I hope y'all really liked it. Let me know what other videos you guys want to see. Any comments and concerns that you have, just leave it in the comments section. And that was how it looked in low light, and this is how it looks with just the ring light. So yeah, we are all done. I hope y'all really enjoyed this video, and I'll see you guys next week.